Hello everyone, welcome to a review of a 2017 Volkswagen Jetta SE. So this Volkswagen Jetta is obviously pre-owned. The owner has put about 55,000 miles on it, and I will say that although I am not the owner, I do have some key insights that the owner has provided me that'll allow you to get a unique perspective on this car related to if you were wanting to buy one pre-owned. So this Volkswagen Jetta is an SE. It's not the top of the line, but it features a 1.5 liter turbo engine paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission. Not a dual clutch like my Elantra N-Line, but still quick enough to get you from point A to point B. So first of all, you get in this car and you realize that no, it is not a Honda or Toyota. You know, there's definitely some added luxury components to this interior, such as, you know, the gloss black on the door panels, the leatherette seats, and, you know, the added navigation. And also this car has Apple CarPlay wired, not wireless. So this engine has pretty good low-end power. I will say that I've actually done a little bit of 0 to 60 comparison between this car and my Elantra N-Line, and I will say that right off the bat, like right off the line, maybe from like 0 to 15, 0 to 20, this car gets up a little bit quicker than my Elantra N-Line. So with just 150 horsepower, obviously you don't get a lot of high-end power, but if you're just, you know, trying to pass someone in traffic or get on the highway and merge at a decent rate, this car will do it. And boy, oh boy, is it a gorgeous winter day here in New Hampshire. So this steering wheel has a sort of like plastic rubbery feel. I can't particularly say exactly what the material is, but it's one of those materials that'll be really hot in the summer, really cold in the winter. So maybe just add that to your list as to what you might not like if you buy one of these. And although I don't like the material on the steering wheel overall, it's like a D shape. So it's actually kind of nice, and it has all the buttons you would need on the steering wheel, such as adjusting the volume, skipping to your next song, hanging up a phone call, setting your cruise control. It basically has anything that you might need, so you don't really have to pay attention to the infotainment area as much. And with Apple CarPlay and a touchscreen, everything is easily navigatable. I won't do that while I'm driving just for safety reasons, obviously, especially with it snowing here. But the Apple CarPlay works very seamlessly in this car, especially it being a 2017. You wouldn't expect, you know, such great technology to be in a car of this age, but it is, and it works great. This car also features a heated seat for both the driver and the next door passenger here. Obviously none in the rear, but you still get the nice leatherette seats. I will say that's also a component in this car that will get very hot in the summer and very cold in the winter. So although you don't have the risk of staining seats, such as if they were cloth, you do have the risk of burning your butt. So as far as comfort and space in this front seat, I feel as if my legs could use a little bit of room here on the driver's side, but in the passenger side, which I've also sat on for extended periods of time too, plenty of room. It's obviously a bit of a cramped interior for a sedan. It's on the smaller side, definitely being a little smaller than my Elantra for comparison. But overall, it's nothing you can't live with. I just wouldn't recommend taking this car on an extended road trip. Not that you'd be able to fit a lot of luggage in the trunk anyways. So regarding the seats, they're actually quite comfortable. They won't hold you in at all. Like, don't expect to be doing any sort of sporty driving in this car, because if it weren't for the door here, you would basically slide out on any corner. But I will say that they are very comfortable. They're good on my back, and for extended drives, I have no problem sitting in this seat. It's actually quite plush on your back while also being firm on your bottom. And so it kind of provides just like the best of both worlds for a seat for especially an economy sedan where you don't really get good seats. You know, this isn't a Mercedes or something. Obviously, Volkswagen is, you know, a nicer brand, but this car being about in the $20,000 range new, like, it's actually a really good seat. So design-wise, I've actually talked about the Mark 6 Jetta before in my Mark 7 Jetta video. But overall, I really think that Volkswagen did a really great job at these designs. I feel like they're timeless. Obviously, the Mark 6 and the Mark 7, they don't look too much different, but honestly, I think that is kind of the point. Like, Porsche obviously does it, and they're sister companies, you would say. So I think they've kind of taken the design language and said, hey, if we just make good-looking cars, we don't really have to change them all that much. And they've not really made any sort of like outstanding, like in-your-face, bold design choices, but these design choices are just good enough to appeal customers to their cars without having to change them a lot from year to year to, you know, keep up with modern times. So let's test this right off the line. Obviously, it's a little wet. Right now, we're kind of struggling for traction. With it snowing and also 31 degrees out, you know, the roads are pretty slick, so don't expect to get good pickup in these conditions. Don't expect to pass people very well on the highway, but in slower traffic, you won't have any issues. So what has gone wrong in this 2017 Volkswagen Jetta in, you know, the 56,000 miles that the owner has put on this car? So the number one thing that this person wanted me to address is the heated seats. So obviously both the driver and its passenger have heated seats. The driver's side really doesn't work. The passenger side has no issues whatsoever. If you sit in it for a while, it gets hot, no problem at all. But this driver's seat, you can leave it on for 30 minutes, an hour, doesn't matter. It won't really get hot. Like, it definitely needs a new coil or whatever sort of component heats up the seat. I'm guessing it is some sort of coil. But yeah, it just doesn't work well. And the owner was quoted over $1,000 if it ended up being something they had to replace instead of just kind of fix. So, you know, it's kind of a tough thing if your 5-year-old car, and this has been going on for, they said, about 2 years now. So at that time, your 3-year-old's car, its heated seat just wasn't working. Like, that's not okay. And they couldn't get any sort of warranty claim for it, so it's kind of a tough spot to be in, but not the end of the world. So as far as how this Volkswagen Jetta handles, you know, bumps or imperfect road conditions, I will say that for the most part, it's pretty tame. The suspension isn't amazing, you know, it's no Rolls-Royce, but you won't have any sort of problem going over bumps in this car in your daily commute, even if you live in Boston. The suspension is soft enough for you to not really notice bumps as much, unless you're going over some crazy big pothole, and then it might be quite uncomfortable. So I'm not gonna note a ton of things about this car's performance, because I feel like someone who's buying a Volkswagen Jetta SE, especially pre-owned, isn't really looking for a ton of performance. What I should be noting is this car a good value for buying pre-owned? You know, is it going to have a ton of issues down the road? Is it reliable? Is it expensive to fix? So let's talk about that. So I haven't ever owned a Volkswagen myself, but I know for a fact because see, that's the bump I'm talking about. So I know for a fact that I know a lot of people who have owned Volkswagens, and they often have maintenance that is generally more expensive than, say, a Honda or Toyota, and things often break just a bit more than a Honda or a Toyota. But I also feel like you can get a Volkswagen Jetta for quite a bit less than a comparable Honda Civic, just because those cars don't really depreciate as much as these do. And so after this car has had its largest chunk of depreciation, I honestly feel like a Volkswagen Jetta is a good value after it has had that initial huge chunk of depreciation. Because after this car has depreciated, you're getting extra luxury components that you might not get in a comparably priced pre-owned Honda Civic or Toyota Corolla. And those would obviously include the heated seats, the sunroof, the leatherette seats, just the I'm a Volkswagen instead of I'm a Honda or a Toyota might also appeal to some people. But at the same time, you know, keep in mind too that this car also has Apple CarPlay, which is pretty sweet for a car of its age. So I believe at 56,000 miles, the KBB value of one of these pre-owned in good condition is about, right now, obviously the car market's kind of crazy, but between 12 and 15,000. I would say actually probably around 15,000. And so keep that in mind too. If you don't have a ton of money after you have spent, say, $15,000 on this Volkswagen Jetta to then also have to do maintenance, like if you don't have enough to set aside for that, I would probably swing towards a Honda or a Toyota, just because things don't break as often, and also those cars are generally less expensive to fix, especially a naturally aspirated engine instead of this one that has a turbo. And you might obviously get better pickup with this car that has the turbo, but at the same time, those naturally aspirated engines generally last longer. So another thing to note about this Volkswagen Jetta is that the stereo isn't all that great. If you're kind of an audiophile like me, you might turn your nose to this stereo system that is in this car, but at the same time, if that's the only thing that is keeping you from buying one of these Volkswagen Jettas, maybe you can find one with an upgraded stereo system, a GLI, but you might have to pay more for those. Or you could go to, say, Best Buy and get new speakers, but just do your research ahead of time, because you don't want to buy speakers and pay a lot of money for them if they're not actually going to sound good, because sometimes those speakers, you know, might not be as good as some of the name brands, and you might spend quite a bit of money to get them and then get them installed and then them not be good. So just make sure, you know, you do your homework if you're going to take that route. With that being said, I'm not sure I would buy one of these. I do enjoy it. It's a very comfortable car. It gets pretty good fuel economy at around 35 miles a gallon. The range is typically around 300 to 400, closer to the 400 mark, and it's pretty quiet in here too. I mean, this car has actually new Continental all seasons on, so it rides pretty nice too. But I just feel like if I were in the market for a car in this price range, being pre-owned, I might get something a little more fun, just because that's who I am. You know, $15,000 could get you a nice pre-owned Mustang, or you know, something a little bit more fun. But overall, I think it's a good value, especially after that initial depreciation, which I talked about before. If you guys have any questions, please leave them below. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, as it helps my channel grow. And thank you guys very much. Peace.